Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your girl Mitzi, and this is Mitzi. Let's think about it. Today, we are thinking about toxic religion, and that's something to really think about because nobody really associates the word toxic when it comes to religion and practicing religious beliefs and things of that nature. Let's be honest, people don't think about it, but in reality, it is happening more often than not. So, luckily for me, I have my special guest here, Bree, who is someone who's trying to help other people get out of that toxic religion. So thank you so much for joining, and I hope you're having a good day.
Thanks so much for having me on the podcast, Mitzi. I'm excited to be here and have this conversation.
Yes, yes. I think this is important. When you brought it to my attention, I was just like, you know what? That is truly something that we all need to think about because toxic religions out there, and especially from your point of view, where you had to leave a cult, a Christian cult, and you realized it was toxic. That was really like eye-opening to me because what made you realize you were even in a toxic religion, like in this cult? When did you realize like this was a cult?
Well, I grew up in it. For me, like growing up, I just thought it was like this was normal. This is like what everybody did this stuff, right? It didn't really, I guess, click or like, I didn't really get that it was not normal and that it was actually pretty toxic, even within like normal Christian church circles. It was odd.
Okay.
Probably until I was like an adult, once I had left home and I kind of started sharing some of my story with people and recognizing when I was sharing it that like people were just kind of like, what?
Do you need
Um,
help? Blink twice.
yeah. I remember once, I think I already had two of my kids. So I
Mhm.
was like 23, 24, something like that. And one of my new friends, who I had like recently become acquainted with, and so we had been hanging out and whatever, and she's like, dude, like, you're in a cult, right? And at the time I was just like, well, like, I know it's like it's kind of extra, but I don't think it's a cult. I think that's a bit extreme. But that was like, definitely a stepping stone towards me realizing like, no, like there's a lot of high control tactics here. There's a lot of, but I didn't have these words for it at the time. Just like I started recognizing that I didn't really align with this way of thinking, with this way of believing. I wanted to like live my own life and not be told what life I got to live or how I got to show up in the world or the kind of mom I got to be. There was just, yeah, there was so much like control, and I'm like a rebel by nature. So I don't think I ever really fit in with the whole thing
Yeah.
very well. And I can remember like, seeing some of my other friends when we were teenagers and the way that they kind of interacted with their families and especially with their dads and just being like, I guess there must be something like wrong with me because like I don't do it right. I don't do it that good, like I'm not a submissive person. And so
Yeah.
um and then when I got older and kind of on the other side of deconstruction, I can just see that like no, that was like my true self was trying to be present in that environment that it was not really welcome in. Um,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, so it was really difficult for me growing up because there was definitely a lot of comparison, on my part and even on like other adults in my life part that were like, why can't you be more like this person over here who like
Mhm.
obviously finds it very easy to do these things.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of like fear and control tactics happening that are enabling those girls or those other people to show up that way, right? Like
Mm.
that there's a lot of fear enforced in that kind of a belief system where you don't feel like you have the freedom to speak out for yourself, especially as a woman or a girl.
Yeah, I appreciate you just being honest because I think it's necessary for people to really understand like you don't really know what's happening. This is just something that you grew up with, so it's considered to be normal. And I think once people start realizing that someone's normal is not like the other, is not like another person's normal, then they'll have more of not an understanding because that's not the right word, but I guess more of um, respect. I guess
Mm-hmm.
that's the right word because people need to respect the fact that we are coming into this world with a different perspective, with a different understanding, with a different view on
Mm-hmm.
how things work, and especially in that cult life. When you kept on saying like it's very restrictive, it's very controlling, it's per each, you know what I mean? It's very a
Yeah.
certain way. And I interviewed somebody else who was in a cult and he kind of said the same thing that, but he wasn't necessarily born into the cult. He kind of like got in
Mm-hmm.
through marriage, but didn't realize it until years later that, oh, this is what
Right.
it is. So it makes sense because people say that they use actual like scriptures from the Bible, but then they twist it, and it's that twisting factor that people need to be careful for because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people are actually falling into cults. So what made you want to share your story and help other people who may be leaving this toxicity that's slowly creeping back its way into our lives?
Yeah, yeah. So for me, I think because I went on this whole like deconstruction journey basically on my own, because back at the time that I started deconstructing, deconstruction was not a term. And there was no like, right now on Instagram, Facebook, anywhere you go, there's a huge deconstruction community. You can connect with so many people who are going through very similar things, right? When I started deconstructing, that didn't exist. And I didn't know that I was deconstructing until later. So, like I didn't have a term to put on it. I just like was like, oh, I just guess I'm just not a Christian or whatever. But it even took me a long time to get to the point of being like, no, I definitely know that I don't identify with the term Christian. I still feel that I'm a very spiritual person. And I have spiritual practices, but I definitely don't believe in like the Christian version of spirituality or religion. But I didn't know that there were other people out there that were going through similar things that might have also been deconstructing and stuff. I literally knew of one other person, probably about halfway into my deconstruction journey. And she also came from like the same cult as me, just from like a different branch church. So for me, like stepping into like the coaching role now and holding space for people who are also going through that, it feels really important for me to help build community around that aspect, around the aspect of deconstructing and healing, and personal growth. Because for me, that's I would have valued that so much. I would have loved to have that supportive community, somebody to help kind of guide me through like what's really coming up for me, what are the things that are important to me about this particular part of my journey. And so if I can help create that community, that because so many folks that leave, they leave all like their whole community behind. And if you grew up in it like I did, those are people you've known your whole life, friends, extended family, in a way, like all your church family. You know that when you leave, you're going to lose everybody. And so, if I can help create that positive community on the other side so that you can feel less alone, you can feel validated and supported and, really held accountable in a judgment free space, I think that makes a huge difference in the healing journey.
No, absolutely. Because one of the hardest things I heard is that when you leave, the first thing that you feel is isolated,
Mm-hmm.
and when I was reading on your website and your description of like how it took a long time, it took a
Mm-hmm.
while for you to finally like continue to just keep going and find faith again in your own way, and I respect that. I respect that 100%
Yeah.
because the problem that I have with the term religion is that there's rules. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean?
Yeah.
And I hate that term religion and say, "Oh, what religion are you?" I'm like, well, that's
Yeah.
exhausting.
Yeah.
Like I don't even want to answer that because like I got for me in my personal opinion, I feel that God doesn't have rules. Like he
Mm-hmm.
doesn't, as long as you love, then who's to say you're wrong?
Yeah.
And who's to say that he's the only one that knows your heart, so who's to say your intentions are wrong or anything if he knows what your heart. So I say I'm on a spiritual walk as well, and that I connect more with my spirit, because if God gave me the Holy Spirit, then who's to say that my spirit can't connect with him automatically? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that's my perspective on the matter. So when I understand with the term religion, is just, it's such a harsh word. It
Mm-hmm.
requires so much work, where it creates such a distance between your actual like relationship, and
Yeah.
it's sickening. So it's nice to see that you're creating this different perspective so that people can see it differently. They don't feel trapped, they don't feel stuck, and it's not like it's going in the wrong direction. You guys are just finding it your own way, and I think that's the beauty of having that community, so that you can tell other people like, let's all be our family together, we can do this together. If you're nervous or if you have weak days, well, you know what, we all do. We all have those days where
Mm-hmm.
it's like harder than the other. And that's the beauty of community, of just talking, and not allowing yourself to be isolated. That's
Yeah.
the biggest thing. And I guess my next question is, when you see somebody that may be in that toxic religion, do you have like signs that you look out for or something like that? Well, or what would be your signs?
Yeah, so typically, the people who come to me or who end up kind of in my, you know, online environment, um,
Yeah.
these are people who probably have already left a toxic religion, either recently or some time ago. So a lot of times, by the time somebody is coaching with me or in the group coaching space with me, they have started unpacking something so that they really have the awareness of like why they left, and they're probably working on kind of rebuilding what their beliefs are. You said something just a little bit ago about like finding your own way, and that's something that's really important to me, is that the trajectory my journey took is unique to me. I'm not
Yes.
trying to help you take the exact same journey as me, right? So if you're still in the church, I'm not going to talk somebody out of leaving the church. But
Yeah.
if I can hold, and something I would really like to do is like have some kind of resource on my website for folks to have a safe place to gather, like here's a safe way to leave the church if your physical or psychological safety is in danger. Here are some great therapist resources that can really help you unpack a lot of the trauma, because as a coach, like I can help guide people forward and help them like you know heal forward, but I'm not a therapist, so I'm definitely not the person that's gonna go back into the past and unpack all your trauma. That's definitely something that's going to come up in our coaching, and that's why like I'm always investing in trauma informed trainings and practices. um, but then once somebody has left and they have gained that awareness of like recognizing how unaligned they are with that belief system or that way of living, now it's time for them to really figure out what happens moving forward. So a lot of times, like if I were to say go on the hunt for clients, I wouldn't find people. Like that's never going to work for me, because the people that end up working with me are people that connect with me on a relational level first, and then they resonate with the kind of stuff that I'm talking about, and they'll see themselves in the content, they'll see themselves in the stories that I share, even just in similarities, because we all have different stories.
Hmm.
um, and then we create conversations around that, right? And then if it feels like it's the right next step for them, then they might join a group coaching space or reach out about one-on-one coaching. So like a lot of times what I see in the people that end up in my spaces is just a long relationship process. So we build a lot of trust, we build a lot of conversations around their experiences, my experiences, what I know to be true about deconstruction and healing. I just create a lot of safe space for people in a really non-judgmental way. I think that's kind of my superpower as a coach, is just I just remain curious. I don't
Yeah.
assign any meaning to anything somebody is bringing to the table. Um, and that has also been really helpful just in my own healing. And as I continue to heal and grow and deconstruct, um, remaining curious about like why stuff is coming up, even for myself, is always going to be super important.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot because it is important to have that that safe space, and it is important to always be a student. You know what I mean? If you always have
Mm-hmm.
that student mindset, willing to learn and yearning to learn, I think that's a beautiful thing to have. It's some people don't realize that it's a skill, but in reality, it is a skill
Yeah.
because there's so many people who are closed-minded, and once they get out of actual like educational schools they literally just shut their mind off and say, I'm done learning. Well, you are not done learning because you are always learning. There's always something to learn and to evolve with and to help yourself get better. And I like the fact also how you said that, you don't tell people that you're a therapist. You're not gonna unpack their trauma because you're still dealing with your own and you tell them to go to therapists and things like that. And that's beautiful because it just shows that you're not trying to be more than what you are.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we need. We need more people like that. Let's just admit to who you are and what you can do and how you're trying to evolve and how you're trying to be better because when you create that safe space for yourself, you allow people to walk into yours to who they are around you better and it's such a nice thing to see, right? When
Mm-hmm.
you're around
Yeah.
people who just feel comfortable and they could just be me. Like that's the
Yeah.
most beautiful thing because we are in societies and sometimes cultures and just traditions, that just seem so uptight that it's just it's stressful. It's
Yeah.
extremely stressful. And that's what I loved also about your website that you also had, that free session and you had that opportunity for someone to, just connect to see if the vibe is there, to see if
Mm-hmm.
if it's worth even starting, if you feel comfortable, because that's the first thing. Why invest money if you're not going to even like me?
Yeah. Yeah,
And that's
exactly.
that's that's the best part of the situation because I could feel that you're very genuine about what you're trying to do and what your goal is. So I'm curious to know what is your medicine? You know what I mean? What do you do to help you when your times are low and you feel like, oh, did I make a mistake? You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
what do you go to?
Mm-hmm. For me, my medicine is always going to be nature,
Mm,
specifically water for me. So a couple
yes.
years ago, we actually ended up moving to Nova Scotia, Canada, and we live right by the ocean. So it's very essential for me to fill my cup in some way with water. So sometimes it can be sitting by the ocean, taking a bath or shower, like literally anything like that. But getting out in nature, being on the beach, that kind of stuff, that really fills my cup. Um, and also things like yoga and kriya have been really helpful for me just to have a groundedness and a peace,
Yeah.
so that even when like everything's kind of going to shit, I know I can come back to these practices every day, and I can ground myself in those places. And then also as a mama for, I think alone time is also very essential for me. Once in a while, I need to just have some time without the kids, without all the animals, and just be by myself. So go have coffee, go to yoga, something like that.
Yeah, I think that's a great medicine to have just because sometimes as a mom already, like you have to have some time alone. It has to be
Hmm.
more than just going to the bathroom. I'm just saying it has
Yeah,
to be
yeah,
more.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
Thank goodness. I'm at that point right now where like the bathroom is my safe haven.
Yes, yeah.
Oh goodness. So I guess I want to know, when did you realize you had that I'm so proud of myself moment?
Mm.
Or haven't you?
I just had one of these the other day
Oh
actually.
yeah, that's good.
Yeah, yeah, where I realized that um I don't feel the need to like always do everything by myself anymore. And I feel really comfortable in accepting like the support that I get, from my partner and from my kids, mostly from my partner. But
Yeah.
yeah, where like I don't feel that same pressure that I used to feel around having to show up in a certain way and having to like handle everything by myself. and and I don't feel pressure about letting other people help me. Because I definitely used to have, some like maybe guilt around those things. First day of school this year, we had a rough night with the baby, and my partner handled everything with the other three kids getting out the door, going off to school, taking the pictures, like did all the typical things that I would have done. And I was just like, yep, and it's okay. And I'm just gonna like lay here in bed and keep my eyes closed for a few more minutes. So that was something for me that I've been working on that for a long time. And just being able to accept help from other people and feel supported and like, yeah. So it just the other day was like, wow, I'm really proud of myself. That's pretty good.
No, I love that because people don't realize that sometimes it's the little things, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
I love
Yeah.
that you shared that it was the little things. It wasn't something so big and monumental, like, oh, I was standing on a big hill looking down and I did, you know what I mean? Like it was one
Yeah.
of those corny ones. Like it was realistic, and I think that's
Mm-hmm.
the beauty of it because I'm currently in that moment where I'm like, oh, I did it. It's like I finally can do everything without feeling stressed. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and when you have that moment where you feel productive without feeling stressed and not enough and just all these negative emotions, it feels so good. It does feel really good.
Yeah, 100%.
Awesome. Well, this has been such a great conversation, Brie. I really appreciate your time and, sharing your perspective. You didn't have to come on my show. You didn't have to share this, but you did. So yay. Thank
Thank you.
you. Thank you. Thank you so much. And if anybody would like to know from my audience more about Brie, want to check out her lovely website, or just know somebody that is possibly in this transition out of a cult and out of a toxic religion, reach out to Bree. She seems like like someone that is really out here trying to help, and we need more people who are trying to help than trying to harm. Because we run across a lot of people who are, unfortunately, their intentions are to harm. So let's get in community with other people who their intentions are to help and heal because the world is hurting and we all need to be healed. So I have a lovely picture on my website. Just click right under it and it goes directly to hers and some of the stuff I've already said. So you just have to go check it out now. Well, that's it. That's the show, y'all. Always, always, always keep thinking. Bye.